Transmission recovered. File corrupted. Date unknown.
Have you ever been in a place where the silence felt wrong? Where the wind seemed to carry something beyond the cold? Where every shadow seemed to watch you back? An endless desert, a forgotten road, a forest where the branches twist like fingers pointing at you. In these places, the air is heavy. Instinct tells you not to go on, but sometimes it's too late. For centuries, in the dry, isolated lands of the American Southwest, whispered stories have traveled through native tribes. Tales of creatures that walk among us, but are not human. They wear familiar faces, move like people, but something in them is wrong. Legends say they started as humans, but they did something forbidden, an unimaginable choice. For some, it's just a myth, a superstition told to scare children. For others, it's a warning, a reminder that some ancient secrets should never be revealed. They are called Skinwalkers. Some say they are just legends, stories passed down from generation to generation to keep children from wandering into the darkness. Others believe they are something much older, something real. The accounts are eerily similar, told by people who have never met, separated by years, even decades. A shepherd tending to his flock, noticing a motionless figure in the distance, watching. He blinks, and the figure is gone. A woman alone in her home, hearing her mother's voice calling to her from outside, soft, familiar, insistent. But her mother is asleep in the next room. A traveler driving late at night down an empty road, seeing an animal cross in front of his car. But when the headlights catch it, he realizes the thing is standing upright, watching, smiling.
Such good company.
There is always a pattern, always at night, always in places where no one can help. The stories never change, no matter the year, no matter the person. They appear where the land is empty, where the roads stretch endlessly beneath the moon. They do not run, they do not attack, they just watch. And the moment you notice them, they know. There are those who swear they have encountered something and barely escaped. But what happens to those who don't? Over the years, reports have surfaced of people who saw something they were never meant to see. Something that walks among us, hidden in the shadows, watching. Some of these stories are forgotten, dismissed as the ramblings of weary minds or victims of the dark. But others leave traces, like a diary, like an audio tape, like a final message never sent. In 1994, a middle-aged truck driver, identified only as Richard, was on a routine trip through the New Mexico desert. It was a moonless night, and he had been driving for hours without seeing another car, the kind of road that makes you feel like you're driving through nothingness. Richard kept a journal, small notes about his trips, the gas stations where he stopped, the weather, the music playing on the radio. But on the entry for September 12th, something changed.
Around 2:47 a.m., empty road. I hear something. No, I see something up ahead. It looks like a man, but something isn't right. The arms are too long. The posture is wrong. He's standing in the middle of the road as if he's waiting for me. I speed up, but as I get closer, he vanishes.
For a moment, Richard thought he was just tired, a passing hallucination. But then, something happened.
I looked through the side mirror, and there it was, standing by the roadside, watching me. No face, no eyes, no expression. Just a dark outline. But I felt it watching me. My heart pounded. My instinct screamed at me not to stop. I slammed my foot on the gas, made the engine roar. But then, I saw it in the rearview mirror. It started running. It was fast, too fast for something that was supposed to be human. The speedometer hit 55, then 60 miles per hour, and it was still there, running in the darkness, its movements strange, almost as if it were gliding over the ground. I could see its arms, long fingers outstretched, reaching for me. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was the most wrong thing I have ever seen. My hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. I felt that if I looked for too long, something worse would happen. So I focused on the road, gripped the wheel tight, and kept accelerating. And then, out of nowhere, it vanished. It didn't slow down. It didn't fall to the ground. It just disappeared.
Richard drove non-stop until dawn. When he finally stopped at a gas station, his hands were still trembling. He didn't speak to anyone. He just wrote in his journal, and that was the last entry he made. Richard never drove that route again. Some say he quit his job just a few months later, but others tell a different version. They say he started seeing things everywhere, silhouettes in the distance, figures standing by streetlights, things that no one else could see. And then, he disappeared. Some say skinwalkers can mimic human voices, but not just mimic. They know how to use them. They know exactly what words to say to make you come out, to make you let your guard down. They call for you in the night, and they do it in the worst possible way. Sometimes the voice is low, a whisper carried by the wind. Other times, it's as clear as someone speaking right next to you. But always it sounds familiar. They use the faces of those you know. But they're never them. Never. There are those who believe that looking at one of them for too long can mark you, as if somehow it allows them to know who you are, as if what you saw you back, and it comes back later to finish what it started. Stories about these creatures have existed for centuries, passed down through generations in whispers and warnings. But what happens when these stories become real? When someone unwittingly becomes a part of them? On a cold night in November 2011, a young man named Daniel from a small town in Arizona decided to spend the weekend camping with his friends. The group was experienced. They knew how to handle the forest, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen. The night slowly fell, and the campfire was already burning high when they heard the first sound. It was a human call, but something about it was wrong. The tone was strange, as if someone knew what words to say, but didn't understand how to say them properly. The friends looked at each other. There was no one else around. No cars, no tents they had seen before. Nothing. Just the dark forest, the wind, and That call. "Hey, is anyone there?" This time, the voice sounded closer, and that's when one of Daniel's friends did something that might have sealed their fate. He responded. "Who's there?" Silence. The forest became completely still, the kind of silence that weighs in the air, making the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And then, seconds later, came the response. It was the voice of another one of their friends, but that friend was sitting right there beside them, pale, staring into the darkness. "It's me, help me." The phrase was simple, but the voice, it wasn't natural. It was a copy, a perfect imitation, but empty. No one moved. The fire crackled, but they no longer felt its warmth. That's when Daniel noticed something. They were all staring in the same direction, at a dark spot between the trees. But only he saw the eyes. Two small glowing dots reflecting the light from the fire. Too high up to be from an animal, and fixed, not blinking. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just watched. And then one of the friends whispered something that made Daniel's blood run cold. "It's imitating my voice. My God, it's imitating my voice." If you've heard stories about skinwalkers, you know they don't like to be identified. You know that once someone realizes what they truly are, they have to handle the situation. Daniel and his friends didn't wait to see what would happen. They ran, grabbed what they could, and drove off without looking back. But the story doesn't end there. Because the next night, back home, Daniel heard something outside. It was his own voice calling to him. Some things should only be myths. But what if they're not? What if one night, in the absolute silence, you hear your own name being called from outside? Before you answer, make sure it's really who you think it is,